a researcher, and he has been researching information, especially a lot of political information, for over 30-something years here. And so tonight he's going to talk about the Knights Templar 2011, their connection with the Murdock murders, the Norway murders, and the Mexican murders. And so they are not really giving us the full details on what this is all about, what is going on, and that's where Robert X, he will break it all down, give us the information. And what I like about listening to Robert X when he comes on with the information is that he tells you where you can go and find it. He doesn't just give you the information and you have to just take it, his word for it. He tells you where he got the information from his research. So get ready. This is going to be a very informative show because Brother Robert X always gives you the information. So I'm going to pull him up now so we can get started, so we can see exactly what is going on here. Okay. Brother Robert X, are you there?
Yes, I am, Sister Hotep. How are you?
Good, great. Hotep to you, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I was telling the audience that you're going to really give us the 411 on the Knights Templar and these Murdock murders and the Norway murders and the Mexican murders. But on a previous show that we had, you had talked about that it was going to be a lot of murdering that was going to be going on here.
Well, you know, Sister, that's interesting because not more than a week ago, I was doing some reading and I turned on my radio. And every now and then I'll turn on what we have here, WLS, which is the ABC affiliate, or radio affiliate, with this guy, George Norway. Probably some of your listeners are probably aware of him. He took over for Art Bell. And he had one of his, what he calls his esteemed guests on. Now, this is about a week ago, maybe 10 days now. And one of the things that he pointed out on there was that he expected mass death to occur every month this year. Of course, he did it this month. We did it early in the year. Okay? Yeah. And so I guess everybody can see now with all of the unexplained occurrences that are going on. Even in Detroit, Sister, where the brother supposedly killed 5 people and then ran from police a couple of months ago. And, of course, I think they said he committed suicide.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're not through with this year yet, and I expect something extremely huge to happen. And I'm speaking metaphysically. I expect something extremely huge to happen. We've tried to tell people that's the only way Barack Obama can get elected, is there is no election.
Oh, okay.
Beyond that, Sister, there's just so many things going on. I just use one word to describe the times that we're living in, and that's unbelievable.
Now, you know, for some people, they might not know who the Knights Templars are. Can you kind of give them a little insight of who they are so they know who you're talking about?
Well, the Knights Templars were primarily a secret society who have their origins, interestingly enough, in Kemet. These are people who practice the esoteric teachings, what the white people call the mystery system. And they, in fact, were the builders of all of Europe. You will find Masonic symbols all over the old cathedrals in Europe. They were also, because of their elevation in European society, allowed to do things that no one else did. You might consider them the first bankers because they were allowed to do things that bankers do today in terms of changing money and things of that nature, loaning money out in a host and a variety of things. But the thing that they're most noted for is that they were, in fact, the guardians of so-called pilgrims. These were the white people who would travel to the Holy Land, what they called Jerusalem, and that they basically were warrior monks. That's extremely important. They were warrior monks. They took vows of chastity and things of that nature. So that while they were extremely serious at killing people, they were supposed to be devout Christians in that killing. And it's important, sister, to understand these things, because today we have groups like Blackwater, who are, in fact, the Knights Templars. And I'm going to share with your audience, as I've done before, I believe I shared some of these things with them, some of the articles that I have, where even people like Seymour Hersh pointed out that the Knights Templars, which we know in the military as the Joint Special Operations Group, okay, are really Blackwater in terms of their mercenary aspects, and how they are directly connected to not just 120 different covert operations being put in place by Obama to assassinate people in 120 different countries, but they also are connected to the founder of Monsanto, who was also a Knights Templar. And now you see why the Knights Templars have become the security for Monsanto. So this thing is old, it's extensive, and it's dangerous. And the reason that I wanted to do all three of these particular topics in terms of the shooting in Norway, the news of the world being brought down in Britain, being run by Rupert Murdock, who's the owner, because all of his operations are nothing more than intelligence operations, and that's what's going on now. And people have been murdered because they are very much aware of the spying that Rupert Murdock is doing for Israel, using the Knights Templars in Britain as one of his prime sources. And subsequently to both of those, sister, we have in Mexico a so-called new group, and they call them drug dealers, but they are not. They use drugs to finance their military operation to fight against the corrupt government of Mexico. They too have been called the Knights Templars. And all of these three groups have been shown to us very clearly, if you've been looking, all 1 month after another, June, July, and August. The last 3 months, they've revealed these things, even in Time magazine. So this is extremely important. I don't want anybody to take any of this for granted, and that's why we're going to try to lay out some of the articles here to kind of give people a little rundown on where they can go and get the information for themselves. Because I tell you, sister, you're going to scratch your head and ask, how in the hell did the media not report some of this stuff in this country when it's all over the British and Norwegian press?
Yeah, yeah.
And I would suggest,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I would suggest that the reason that they probably haven't is because Daniel Ellsberg, who was the guy who exposed the Pentagon Papers talking about the illegality of the Vietnam War, came out a couple of days ago and clearly pointed out that the mainstream media in this country has been told not to print anything outside of the government explanation for 9/11. And that's why you see 9/11 being pushed into your face for an entire 10 to 11 days now.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead. And that's why you see all today, you turn on the television, and that's all you see is the 9/11 and the families. But it's so much propaganda now. It's hard to really get to the truth, and that's why I appreciate having you on, because this way the people can really look and see what is really going on here. Now, you saying the Knights of the Knights of the Templar, were they something like the hit squad for the Catholic Church?
You can basically call them that, particularly today. Blackwater, for instance, when the war in Iraq first started, Blackwater considered themselves, and this is what Bush said, and the Muslims picked up on it, and this is why they're fighting back. Okay, they said that they were going on the next crusade. And so the Knights Templars still, to this day, consider themselves Crusader Knights. Much of the European hierarchy, I'm talking about the so-called royal families, are all parts of the Knights Templars. I'm talking to males. Okay, so we're not talking about something that's foreign, so to speak. The British Police Department is Knights Templars. The Norwegian Police Department is Knights Templars. And so when you got people like Breivik, the guy who did the shooting in Norway, talking about their other sales, he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
He knows. But there's just some things, sister, that just stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
And no one can deny these things because they happened prior to the shootings in Norway. And one of those things was 2 days before the government building, and it's Oklahoma City all over again, sister. It's the exact same thing. And when you see these things, you know the same people were involved. But 2 days before before the Norway government building bombing, the police were doing exercises in Norway 2 days before the bombing, 1 block from where the bombing took place, just like Oklahoma City. Exact same scenario. In Oklahoma City, and I didn't plan on talking about this, but I am because it's germane. They use fertilizer, fuel and fertilizer. This is exactly what Anders Breivik did, the so-called Norway bomber. He went and bought 6 tons of fertilizer to allegedly manufacture his bomb. Okay? Now, what's interesting is when he went to the island, now check this. This is extremely, you just got to scratch your head and say, how come our media is not telling us this stuff? Okay, this is in the Norway mainstream media. 5 hours before he went to the island and killed all the children, the police were doing an exercise around a lone gunman coming on that island to kill people. 5 hours, sister. But then once he gets to the island after they've left, now they have no way to get to the island. It took them an hour and a half to get to that island after they had just left there 5 hours prior.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because not only did they know what was going to happen, it's my position that they were part and parcel of the whole thing. And that's why they shut off any discussion after about 2 to 3 days of the whole Knights Templars thing, because it was right in the forefront of what was going on in Britain. It came with the riots where the police in Britain now, they came with the riots in Britain to basically serve as a cover. The police were told to stand down because this thing with Rupert Murdock and his spying apparatus goes all the way up to David Cameron, the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Now, I'm going to deal with that in terms of the documentation tomorrow. So I just want to let everybody know, and we'll go through those articles and things tomorrow, but I want to let everybody know and show you how all these things are connected. That's why, if anybody paid attention to what was going on in Britain, you saw the police in some cases just standing around doing nothing until like the second or third day. Then they were told to respond.
That's true.
Okay? So now you know why, because they wanted to happen what happened. And now much of that stuff with Rupert Murdock has been taken off of the front pages of Britain because it was right at Tony Blair's doorstep. Tony Blair had to Congress to testify, to their Congress, which is the Parliament. And he testified that he didn't know anything about the spying. He also testified that he didn't know to any great degree the woman who ran this newspaper apparatus that was the subject of the spying called News of the World. I found out about 2 weeks ago, sister, that not only was he sleeping with this woman, now Tony Blair, David Cameron is married. Now, remember, we told you that David Cameron is a Zionist Jew. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's important because the Prime Minister of France, as we told you before, when we dealt with the whole situation with why am I running a blank here? Anyway, the Prime Minister of France, he too is a Zionist Jew, Nicolas Sarkozy. Both of them are at the forefront, along with Barack Obama, who is a Jewish tool, and you can use that any way you want. It's no accident that all three of them were at the forefront of attacking Libya. Okay? All of these things are connected. Because when you look closely and you look at the mercenary apparatus in Libya, you'll find the same thing. Libya is not fighting some so-called rebels. They're fighting paid soldiers hired by Cameron, Obama, and Sarkozy to basically do their fighting in a covert manner. So none of what you see that's going on now exists in a vacuum. All very much interconnected. And again, when we show people the articles, all they can really do is scratch their head because I don't write any of this stuff. And to further illustrate what I'm talking about, sister, now check this now. This is before, about a month and a few days before the Norway shooting, okay? This is in the London Telegraph for June the 17th, 2011. June the 17th, 2011, okay? Now watch this, sister. The Norway shooting happened on July the 22nd. July is the 7th day. The 7th month, right?
Right.
And the 22nd, when you add up those numbers, you get 4. Mm-hmm. If you take that 7 and add it to 4, you got 11/11, sister. You and I started this year talking about 11/11 and the significance of 11/11. So that shooting happened on 11/11. Mm-hmm. It was the largest shooting this year. The largest mass murder this year. Even with all the tornadoes and things, thing has preceded those murders on 11/11. But this article is headlined, sister. This is, again, the London Telegraph for June 17, 2011. Knights Templar's heirs demand apology from the Vatican. This is in June. And when I saw this article, because I do so much research, I know certain things are put out there as precursors, warnings, signals to intelligence operatives. That's what happens in some of the mainstream media, particular media like New York Times and Washington Post and media like that, because they have long histories of doing intelligence work, long histories. So I knew when I saw this article with this old white boy that's supposed to be the founder of the Knights Templars, Jacques de Molay, the children's order in the Masonic Lodge is called the Order of de Molay, after Jacques de Molay, who was accused of heresy during his time by the Pope and the King, and was subsequently burned at the stake along with some of his men. Some of his other men were able to escape down to Scotland and basically formed what we now know as the Scottish Rites. Okay? So I knew that there was something to this, and so that's the only reason that I copied it, because I already know that the Vatican is not going to come out, even though they already quietly said that they were wrong in burning de Molay at the stake. They haven't publicly apologized. So when the heirs to Jacques de Molay and the Templars demand an apology from the Vatican for the murder of their leader that was burned at the stake in the 14th century, I know that something's up here, and that's why I copied them. Okay? 1 month later, we get the situation in Norway. And I said, man, this is unbelievable. And so I gave a forum dealing with this stuff. And I was able to show people, and I like to look at the faces of people when they see some of these things. Like at the same time that I was showing them this stuff, I showed them the article about the royal families and their historical penchant for eating flesh. They love to eat people, and they love to drink blood.
Yeah.
I'm talking about as recently as, from what they say, 200 years ago. Let me tell it, it's not stopped. And I said that.
That's what I say.
Yeah. And I said that I know they probably had a strong love for dark meat, and that would probably explain the African slave trade to some degree, because they was eating folks.
Right.
But this thing in Norway, sister, by the way, it's important for me to say that during Jimmy Carter's days, you had something called the Norway Peace Accords. And some of your listeners probably remember that. That was the first time that Murdock and Begin and Yasser Arafat, under Jimmy Carter, were forced to come together and agree on some kind of peace plan between the Palestinians and the Jews. That's extremely important. Because to this day, the Jews have not forgiven them. Remember, Begin would be assassinated shortly after that. Okay? That also happened to be the first place where Barack Obama went once he was elected in terms of going to Europe. He went to get his Nobel Peace Prize. While he was there in Norway, there was something called the Norway Spiral. Do you remember that, sister?
Not offhand. No, give us some more information on it.
Well, the Norway Spiral, they said, was a Russian rocket that had gone astray, but the Russians said they didn't fire no rocket. We subsequently found that this spiral, which was in the dead of night, it formed a number of circles, almost like a snow cone, with the circles going all the way down, getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, to form almost like a snow cone, like somebody was sending out a signal from the ground, and as it went high into the atmosphere, it got larger and larger, these circles. They call it the Norway Spiral. People can pull it up on YouTube. It's off the charts. We subsequently found out that they were using the superconductor super collider, attempting to find the origin of matter.
Yeah.
And the origin of humanity. And that they fired that thing up that night. Now, there are some who say that what that thing did was open up a black hole. Okay? Now, I can't prove that, but one thing I do know, that was not a Russian rocket, and that there's been nothing like that, even though they tried to say that, there have been times when rockets were shot and that kind of thing. But I just found it interesting that it happened the day before Barack Obama received his Nobel Peace Prize.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's something with Barack Obama. There's something with Barack Obama. Sister, I've been telling people from day one that this is not a black man. I don't know what he is, but I do know he's not a black man. As a matter of public record, his behavior is anti-black.
Right.
And, sister, I know you probably have encouraged some of the wrath of people saying, why that guy always talking about Barack Obama? Because sometimes in order to get the sheep to go where you want them to go, you go get the sheepdog. Kind of hairy like a sheep, but it ain't no sheep. Or to get the lambs to go to the slaughter,